see how this goes. That's not for this presentation. That's for a writing conference presentation. Would anyone like to see an in-depth, holistic approach to teaching writing, comprehensively and systematically based on everything any discipline in the area has said? That's my approach. If you can go find my ebook for my students called "Holistic Writing for a Healthy Writer."
I like it.
Or just.
Is that part of Arizona's? Help me out, Ryan. The whole initiative we had to put our classes online. So
It is not OER.
Them. Thank you.
No. I appreciate the efforts and the mindsets of OER. I have not come to fully engage with it for a couple reasons. Sometimes, there are studies on students appreciating things that cost more money.
Well,
Actually,
true.
from marketing research, like marketing psychology,
Mm-hmm.
it's a weird thing that if it costs a lot, they assume it's more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
If it's set up as free, sometimes they devalue it, even if it's as valuable intrinsically. But that's a whole other thing. And I probably shouldn't have said that after starting the recording. I'm kidding. But no, yeah.
Our students very much appreciate free, but they're very, very poor in general.
Yeah, yeah. We do have scholarships for class materials.
Oh, that's
but
nice.
Yeah, if when people are in those kind of tough places. So. And my textbook, I feel, is reasonable at $65. It's the best I could do without self-publishing, which we're not allowed to do in Maricopa.
Oh.
But yeah, that's a whole other thing. And not what I'm talking about for those who just walked in. So.
You're not allowed to stay unless you buy the book.
Oh. This is too long. I always like to do a seminar audio check for myself. We still have a few minutes. We have 3 minutes left. Have you guys been enjoying conference fun times? It is a pretty cool place. Who is a first time? Anybody a first time? Cool. A couple. Okay, yeah. Like I know those from I can't remember the first one. Northland. I said North Bend earlier, and I'm like that's wrong. North Bend Pioneer. I'm like, I know I've seen Ricky a couple times, but you guys are all fresh this time, so that's good. I'm glad he was able to do that. And then, where are you from?
From Missouri S&T.
Nice, very cool. What brought you to Learning Communities for this conference?
Our institution has not. And they've made it an institutional priority to develop living learning community programs, and then try to do some learning community things. They have no idea what they're doing. Nor do we have any funding for it or any responsible people with it, like incorporated to their job duties.
Yeah.
And so it's.
You mean people in authority or people with jurisdiction responsible?
At the highest levels, yes, it's part of like our new like strategic plan reworks. It exists there, and I think they're working on developing the staffing structure. They've talked now for like 2 years about developing a coordinator for learning communities. Someone to actually be responsible for that and have that as their core duty. That doesn't exist yet, quite yet.
Okay.
But it's been of interest to me, and I've worked with some of the living learning communities that have popped up. We've soft launched 3,
Okay.
and I have 2 of them in the hall that I currently manage. I'm a residence hall coordinator.
Very
And
cool.
so
That's great.
here to help the ones that already exist, but also as the university looks to develop those. I'm hoping that that's maybe somewhere I can slot in.
I like your trajectory thinking. It's good to think forward. So.
We said our students do.
Is that the
Yeah,
so
the
okay.
bluebird. Really happy to see you. Our our students that come from,
That's why you paid off.
community
Yeah, sleep
colleges,
in.
like, they
Oh
do
my gosh.
actually really well.
Nice.
Yeah, I've had some good, really good ones that have gone down S&P.
Any names recently, you know?
Brian, Kepler, Kebler, K-E-B-L-E-R.
I don't think I ran into him.
He runs, he actually did quite well. Bright student. He comes from under me. Yeah, just down the street.
Well, I hate doing conference presentations in small rooms where I don't know, and where I think other people don't know each other. Are you guys okay if we do a round, or is it you're like, please don't make me do anything social at this point? Okay.
No Gen-X in here anywhere.
We'll just start at the very back. You're already vocal. Just they're warmed up, right?
Well, I talk for a living, so I'm Karen Scheel. I'm a teaching professor here at Iowa State University in psychology, and among other responsibilities, I direct the psychology learning community and have been involved in that in different capacities for about 15 years.
Wonderful, thank you. And say your first name again.
Karen.
Okay. And for everyone, I end up remembering better if you do that too. Like do it beginning and end. It's just if you would please.
I'm Tracy Stevens. I'm a professor of English and first-year writing director at King's University of Charlotte. So, Tracy.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Berlin. I teach biology classes at Northland Pioneer College and in the middle of my first learning community experience, and my name is Kathy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Brian Jones. I teach English at Northland Pioneer College, which is in northeastern Arizona. Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
I'm nobody.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Go ahead.
Leslie Graybeal. I work with our living learning communities at University of Central Arkansas. So, Leslie.
Thanks, Liz.
Now is it, you sure?
I was sure the whole time.
I'm Inez Schachterly. I'm an English prof at Northland Pioneer College, and I've been doing learning communities with a fabulous colleague for 3 years, I believe.
Inez.
Inez, yes.
Inez.
Dwayne, Northland Pioneer College, with recruitment for first time with the learning communities and Dwayne.
Very cool. You inspired a slide today. You should know that. Our conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Doug Fischel at Metropolitan Community College in Kansas City. I'm a philosophy instructor. I've done learning communities for 10, 15 years. Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Paige Lush. I'm a music instructor at McHenry County College in Crystal Lake, Illinois, and I teach a learning community with Robert.
And I'm Robert McCord, English, McHenry County College, and I teach with Paige. Robert.
Robert was telling me about you guys as LC. I was excited. I thought that was really cool. Well, I am Dr. Greg Fields. Do spell it with 2 G's at the end like egg, because I am scrambled. But no matter what, I try and be sunny side up. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh,
I was talking right at the very beginning.
Yeah. That's probably my brain.
I'm Alex Hudson. I'm a residence hall coordinator with the Missouri S&T, and I currently help facilitate 2 living learning communities. One is our Amish College LLC, and the other one is a Changemakers LLC.
Cool. Thanks, Alex. And then who just joined us?
Hi, how are you? I'm Jennifer Murphy. I'm from Texas Wesleyan University.
Nice. Very
I'm
cool.
actually the person who gets all the funding for all of our programs.
Oh, wonderful.
So I'm kind of an anomaly in the room.
I almost, yeah, that's wonderful, good. Well, yeah, for those who just came in, hi, I'm Greg. This is titled Using Funding Challenges to Develop LC Practices of Efficiency. We'll talk, we'll highlight a few of the key words that I used in the description because I assume that some of those might be what you're looking for. As part of the process, was anyone in Chris and David's presentation this morning? Okay, so there's some institutional context I'll try and provide, though they did a large amount of it earlier. And I'm going to try and build on it or highlight the mindsets around it rather than restate some of that. So the fast version is CGC has always been a strong learning communities program, but recently we had a couple strange things, as you do, from high turnover of executive administrative roles to regular retirement of multiple faculty shortly after COVID who were our core LCs promoters. In the past, in the second golden age of LCs at Chandler Gilbert Community College, we would have anywhere from 25, 30, sometimes up to like 33, I think was our max LCs at one point. And so for a community college, that's not terrible. We don't have a full campus 97% saturation rate on LCs, but man, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. But part of the challenge of having a bunch of retirees and multiple incoming new executive roles is that we tried to advocate as best we could, but there were people who didn't know LCs at the same time that LCs suddenly looked small. To go from 15 LCs to 4 was kind of a big deal, and that was post-pandemic. Like we were maintaining. We had lost a few, but had gotten back up there, and then we had 3 or 4 people in the LC program retire and roll over. And one part of that I do think has to do with slowdown in recruitment post-COVID. A lot of the LC coordinator energies were focused on hosting in 2022. And so anybody go to that one in Phoenix, the NLCC in Phoenix? So we did that. We were over there 3-4 years ago. It was a good conference. Trying to make you jealous. Not doing a good job of it. But it really was. It was cool. I've been the co-coordinator for, I'm in my 3rd year, I think, at this point. And so my first year I took over, and we had dropped. And these are things that, I don't know about you guys, but our institution, the life cycle of a learning community, once it's chosen, decided, we have the partners, we know what courses, takes a year. It usually takes 2 years to cultivate new partnerships, and a year to make sure they're in the schedule without anybody being in a state of putting out fires. And I really hate having people put out fires for something that I'm over. It's just I learned it in as part of like manager training at McDonald's when I was 19, right? It's like you architect a system, you don't do fire suppression unless it's on purpose. All that to say, sometimes we come into situations where there are challenges, where funding models get challenged. Traditionally we had fully integrated, the primary thing we did was emphasize fully integrated learning communities, fully co-taught, fully co-enrolled, teachers in the class for both courses, and they would get double pay. So if it was a 3 credit hour course, they got paid 6 credit hours, they were INTOF. If it was a 4 credit hour course, they were supposed to get 4, but sometimes they'd be nice and send the other half to the person who's getting less and staying longer. So that was nice of them. But as far as my role, so I did say I'm co-coordinator for learning communities at Chandler Gilbert. There's 2 of us, and then part of the LC leadership team is also our Dean Krishnik, who is interim as a senior associate vice president of academic affairs for like a semester as we hire someone new. So with that, my experience with LCs, if you haven't heard my spiel before, is that I have co-taught LCs fully integrated with chemistry. I teach writing with chemistry, with college algebra, college trig, information systems, which is like a research course through with library faculty, intro to business, and introduction to computer information systems. So suffice to say, I get around. Poor phrasing. But I also, my LCs with math are the only ones to duplicate, to have more than one partner in that course that I'm co-teaching with, and we expanded to multiple semesters, and so yeah, that was also what I put in on the application for the position for co-coordinator. But all that to say, what I'm really focused, so that was some context. Ultimately, we were getting paid double load, and the kind of the tension point of the challenge of the last year was we came back from NLCC all excited, but we knew that our interim president and our VPAA, who was only 3 years into being in that role, were wanting to discuss the funding models because of some changes in the faculty agreements for all colleges, all this fun stuff. And so we had a variety of meetings with them and tried to figure out how we spent time. Okay, so all that to say, we all have institutional problems, right? We all have institutional challenges. How we approach those is really what I'm going to talk about most. So I believe in the description. Let me see, actually, where do I start? Yeah, so I said we're going to discover how our LC leadership teams used a challenge to the existing funding model by what I believe is to be well-meaning administrators to develop practices of efficiency and consistent and expanded practices of consistency. And so we'll talk about the mindset, but we'll just go through it. And so that was the thing from earlier, and I'm sorry for putting on the paragraph, but we'll move on. So the first word I have here, one of the things I had is we're going to discover a process. Now to discover, you have to be thinking a certain way. The definition of discover, to obtain sight or knowledge of for the first time. So what does that make you think about? Let's see if I can get the right. What, or since it's new, obtain sight for the first time, what do new things make you feel?
Excited.
Excited?
Nervous.
Nervous?
Yeah.
You get that? Anybody see the Croods, or am I the only one with 3 kids? So it's new, right? Like that whole thing. Oh, that's not the button. Ha! Fear, excitement, adventure, right? That last one's really kind of important. Because if we go and we're trying to discover a new way of approach or discover anything and it's new, our mindset as we approach that is going to change the way we engage, the way we problem solve. So that's part of what we're talking about here. So I'm sorry if it ends up being a little Tony Robbins today. So maybe you need that right now, though. I talking with faculty the last couple days, one half joking said, like, it was asked, like, what are you hoping to get out of the conference? And he said, hope. And that was like, he didn't expand. You know, just I think a lot of people, depending on what their institutional state is, I know we've got a couple people presenting, they are uncomfortable with their current state of things. But there is a drastic difference in framing something. We know this from biochemistry and neuroscience, that there's a difference in framing something as stress or as nervousness versus excitement, or fear versus excitement. So you do yourself good, even if it's weird, to say I'm excited versus fearful. It changes. There's good solid research on it. But it's not what I'm a doctor in. So we're going to move on. First, we're going to try and discover some things. We have to think about what do we do if it's new, and maybe it's not. Maybe what we're talking about isn't new. So, but that doesn't mean the things you're going to run into aren't. So we have to be in a mindset of discovery. The other part I had in the description is to use a challenge. What challenges have you had in institutions, of your own institutions, in the last 10 years? Anybody who wants to share?
Leadership turnover.
Leadership turnover. Not like an apple turnover. It's not the same. Though, depending on which mythologies you, never mind. What else? So leadership turnover.
High workload.
High workload. Thanks, Karen.
Funding.
Funding. Thanks, Douglas.
Asymmetrical growth.
Asymmetrical growth. That's a fun one. Tell me what you mean by that.
Significant money poured into some aspects of the university, causing significant growth to the university without necessarily the same level of attention or growth in the support structures or maintenance structures.
That's a good one. Okay, yeah. I mean, there are worse problems to have, but that's a fun one. I like it. It's like you've got all the scaffolding and they're already building the top floor. And you don't have it yet. Okay. It's like, let's put the finishes on the first floor, right? So the definition of a challenge, because hopefully using means just actively engaging with it, right? A call to take part in a contest or competition. Is that what you felt like your challenge was? A call to take part in? Mm-hmm. Or did you feel like things were happening to you or around you? That's the hard part, right? It's really tough when we get into challenges at that level, especially don't know what your role is, depends on your role. But I know a lot of faculty struggled with that when we also had course caps being challenged by the same VPAA who's no longer here. We're in search committee mode right now. That one who was only there 2 or 3 years. But when those things are happening, sometimes it feels like as faculty, I don't even know how to engage with changing this. And like, do I tell my chair? Do I tell my dean? Can they even do anything? And we start getting into that. Maybe I'm not useful, right? I don't feel a challenge. I don't feel a call to take part in a contest or competition. And we'll talk more about the second part of this definition in a minute, especially in a duel. It does feel like a duel sometimes, but sometimes if you feel like this is happening to me, it doesn't feel like a fair fight. I brought a knife to a gunfight situation, right? Aaron Burke, no, just kidding. So what challenges do you have at your institution? I asked you that already, right? Anybody come up with anything else as we talked about it? Or as I rambled on?
Well, delivery methods.
Delivery methods.
Since we're so spread out, there's got to be a big difference between having a learning community in a traditional classroom and having a learning community with that wall of distance between you.
Yeah, because you guys use high flex, so you could have people in the classroom or distance learning at the same time,
And
right?
it's mostly distance.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that's like in the classroom challenge. That is something that sometimes we feel like we can do something about unless someone says you have to do this, and then sometimes anytime we're told to do. Okay, but yeah, so maybe it's some things to think about. Enrollment caps, funding or staffing, marketing, advising, scheduling. I don't think we said any of those, so that's good. As I was talking with Dwayne earlier this week, because you have changes in multiple systems as you're trying to onboard students, right? So what are the new systems? You're shifting from Blackboard to Anthology. You said shifting from Moodle, I'm sorry, no, not Blackboard, SIS to Anthology, Moodle to Blackboard. Okay. So they've got huge changes in the way they're structuring things. And we were talking about it, and it sounded really hard. And I think that the phrase we stumbled on was it sounded like you were drowning trying to build the boat.
In a way, because most of the time in recruitment, getting the students on board is to make sure that we have that first contact. And in that first contact is to start building that relationship with the student.
Mm-hmm.
And thereon, after that is passing them on to the advisors.
Yeah.
And then having it go from there. So having this new software, we're learning to get on the boat with the student. And right now we're on the different boats, but we're trying to get on that one boat right now where we're all learning.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some nicks and cracks here and there from our end, but eventually our whole goal is to be on that big boat with everyone else as far as student-wise with the changes of the software.
And to have that boat not be the Titanic.
Yep.
Yeah. Too soon. You know, I don't know.
But I mean, you know, I've worked at a lot of institutions that have brought on new. I mean, I'm not one of those. Oh my God, this will never work. I hate people like we did that 30 years ago and it didn't work. But anytime you bring on these new computer programs and electronics and grades and blah 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 blah, there's just always going to be snags, and you can't time them for like summer would be nice. They happen in real time.
Yeah, transitioning though from Moodle to Blackboard between December and January. Like at my
It's not like we need Christmas
at my
break.
former campus, we transitioned from, I can't remember what we had, to Canvas. We had a year. So we had trainings and we had all this stuff. Here we have like a month.
Yeah. And there's a lot, and
I'm
Matt,
excited though. I'm happy
Yeah.
to have Blackboard. I do not like Moodle.
see how Kathy framed that? I'm excited. It's okay to say excited with your eyes like you're in headlights. So how many challenges, or have you ever heard this expression described as the perfect storm, right? We have all these things happen. It was the perfect storm that led to. If you're thinking in hindsight, you know, a program got cut. You know, you're hearing someone tell a story of something bad, and it's like it was the perfect storm of like happenstance, you know, serendipity, but the bad kind. You know, hopefully it wasn't providential, right? But just to play into the metaphor a little bit, right? Sometimes we have multiple factors changing at once. It's a high intensity moment, but times of change are also times of opportunity for all parties, including yourself. And so, like I said, I'm kind of in motivational mode, forgive me. And so part of that, so that made me think of It's a Wonderful Life. Who here seen that movie?
Oh, of course.
You say that. A decade ago still, one of my first teaching classes, I referenced it around Christmas time and students had no idea. And We watch it every year with my kids. But
I taught in just this year in my English lit. Nobody'd heard of King Arthur.
yeah, well,
I know.
yeah. There have been modern. There's stuff they should know that one.
I had to go
I'm
and have a
kidding.
drink.
I'm not judging. I teach mythology too. Yeah, I didn't say some of those other things. But in It's a Wonderful Life, that as I'm thinking about all this, and though it's not boat oriented, though his brother does shoot down planes going after a transport ship and when he goes and has the flashback or has the I'm not a real person, I should never have been born, his brother doesn't save a transport ship of soldiers because he wasn't there to save his brother. But the thing here is he at one point says Potter isn't selling, Potter's buying. Now there's some challenge here. Like we talked about, like it could feel like a duel, it could feel like a competition, it could feel like and Potter wasn't inviting him, right? We don't, but Potter was selling things super cheap, so he highlights like Potter's not doing what you're doing. You're fearful. You're not maximizing the opportunity, and so he pulls the community together, and so he says if for no other reason that people don't have to go running to Potter and live in one of his sad houses, for lack of a better term. But it also, if we're in the mindset of discovery and the mindset of engaging it in the challenge, we can take part in these opportunities too, which is what I was telling Dwayne earlier. It's like when everything is all up in the air, that's a moment for you to advocate. And so sometimes if you know those seasons are going to come no matter what, you can prepare in slow seasons for tough seasons, right? And so one of the things we did at our program over the last few years was we've been gathering data and we presented the data, and that allowed it, like we didn't lose a program. We're not necessarily happy with the funding model, but what we did gain is an official line item to budget. Before it was like the money, they would pay that double pay for LC faculty, and it'd be like the VP just kind of discovered it. It's like wherever it was, sure, we'll just pay that. And one of the challenges with that is that that looks bad to other people for one, and there's no justification, there's no rationale. So it's just as easy to say why pay you at all. Like it's not in the budget. So it was a win in that sense. But having that mindset of all parties can use times of change or challenge as opportunity. When there's a storm, sometimes it's easier to fish, depending on right? Isn't there a whole show about this? The Atlantic fisher people. Very dangerous job though. Okay, so the other part of my description was the idea of well-meaning administrators. So going back to that idea of I'm being called to adventure. I'm being called to engage in this challenge. Possibly I should see myself as an equal partner, whatever the power dynamics of the situation. How I engage with that might change, but I should be actively engaged because I'm more likely to be an agent of change if I'm in that mode. It does no good, and this doesn't work for the example of It's a Wonderful Life, because one, that's fictional, and he is, like Mr. Potter's, written as evil. He has one note. He's deceptive and evil, and he's that. And it's possible we can see our administrators that way sometimes, but generally, let's look at well-meaning first. Well-meaning is, if we try and frame other people as well-meaning, it means they're wanting to have a good effect. What is the path to hell is laid with good intentions? Is that the saying? The old proverb? Maybe it's not so old. But not always achieving one, right? So well-meaning means they're not out to get people, but they are, but they're not always achieving good ends. And that can happen because of ignorance. That can happen because of a number of different things, right? For us, we had an administrator who, if our county had a legal error in tax collection, which was one of our primary ways of funding the community college, and we had to pay it back. The community college district had to pay it back after trying to fight it and then having to pay all the legal fees. So it was millions of dollars distributed through the budgets of 10 colleges. And so we were told, if this goes really badly and we can't get this expenditure limit changed, some people from Arizona know, if we can't get this expenditure limit law adjusted, then we're going to have to find 2 to 4% of our district budgets to reduce. And we're talking like my college alone is $68-70 million. I'm on the Budget Advisory Council committee, and so it's not $6 or $7 million. Sorry, wrong generation. So 12-year-olds, great guess. So with that, if we have legal pressures that are affecting the district, we know no matter what we could get to 2 to 4%. So our VPAA said you have to find at least a 1% adjustment across all areas. And so so she tried 6 months in advance, and I do believe she was well-meaning in this. I think there were some communication challenges and some personality and culture conflicts as she was trying to integrate into the various administrations and teams of college that made this worse. But she basically had course caps raised across all classes, went and looked at all the various things. Learning communities was one of them to say, we're funding a lot, isn't that just teaching? And so trying to sell her on this was a challenge. And so I do think there was a well-meaning part of this. When have you had a situation where, or seen someone not approach conflict, challenge, or a storm, assuming the other party was well-meaning? Anyone wants to share? You can say, I know a guy, and deflect a little. Actually, that's a great way to start. Who wants to tell an I know a guy story? Nobody? Maybe? Whisper it to the person next to you real fast. Go for it. Yeah. Find someone and say, I know a guy, and I won't tell you all the details. Like, go have that moment with each other while I get a drink of water.
Can you repeat the question?
So, when was there tension, conflict, a storm, and you saw someone assume the other person wasn't well-meaning?
Wasn't.
You could, I guess, do either story, but yeah, that was the original question. But if you can think of a better example, someone did this well, someone was thinking good of the other side.
We have a board member who doesn't think that professors are well-meaning.
Okay. How does that make the professors feel?
Between despairing and frickin' ticked off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm not getting as many bonbons as that man thinks I am.
We changed enrollment platforms over the summer, and among the things that it did was before PeopleSoft would always, if you had a learning community, right underneath it was the linked class.
Mm.
So, and then there was the legend, if you enroll in this class, you must always also enroll in this class. And the new banner enrollment system did not include that.
Mm.
Now, it did have the name of the class and then LC after it, but the students who were self-advising had no idea what was going on. That was, and it was kind of like, oh, well, you know, we're not going to be able to fix it. Well, we were looking at several learning communities that were going to go down the tubes because students didn't know how to enroll in them.
Yeah.
So
user experience.
And so well-meaning, I don't think they foresaw that was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And as far as were they well-meaning or not, it was more well, we're not going to be able to fix it. You know, I mean, there wasn't no sympathy at all. Well, but the good thing that came out of it is that it drove us to the advisors and really built some real good bridges between advocates of LCs and the advisors,
Mm-hmm.
so that so the students that weren't self-advising, which is not a big bunch, it turned out not to be as bad as we thought it would be.
I like that you say it drove us, right? Though we don't necessarily like to be pushed into something, being like moving is a good thing, right? It means you're responsive, right? You're
Well, I mean,
action.
you know, everyone knows we should work with, we should work closely with our advisors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll do it next year. You know, if things are going well,
Yeah.
we're not really motivated to change the way the system works, and all of a sudden we were in a place where we had to.
Yeah. It's like I was talking, I sat in on the one before this, the hangout before this that was, oh gosh, I just spaced on. With Jim Allen, who's been around tons, but here at Iowa State, and he was talking about, he's like, right now, it's like he feels like he's in good health, but the more gray hair he gets, the more he has to think about a succession plan. And I tried to encourage him as someone who had to kind of push my way into LCs a little more than be invited in sometimes. That's not complete. I didn't want to frame it over intensely, but it's a good thing to be thinking about. Like, we have to be planning ahead. It's a weird thing for someone who just turned 40 this year to say, but there should be a retirement plan. If we're always trying to replace ourselves, that kind of thing. If we're always trying to replace ourselves, other people grow and we grow beyond where we're at. One way, but as far as the well-meaning goes, if we don't assume well-meaning, we get into us versus them mentality, which means we're going to engage with that person differently. But there are challenges. So we want to avoid an us versus them mentality, even if it feels true. It's really easy not understanding the other person's logic, not having communication, there being layers of leadership between you and them, to go, they are not for me. And it could be that they have no idea about you and they need you to tell them. Or it could be maybe they aren't, but you don't know. If it's a gray area, you get to choose how you respond to it, right? Because even if it feels true, it's not rhetorically effective or healthy to have an us-them mentality. You don't act the same way. You talk about people differently when they're not in the room, right? And so it changes the way you approach the problem, the challenge, the storm. Instead of seeing them as trying to build the other side of the boat that you can't see, you're thinking they're leaving you out of the process. And maybe they are, but you don't keep building your part of the boat when that happens. Sorry for the extended metaphor. I just really like it. One of my publications is all about designing a 16-week English course based around an extended metaphor. The whole time we were tying every part of writing to camping and to space. So we built an entire course around writing as space as a metaphor for writing and the writing process. So we, just as a side note, so we talked about things like space trash and cleaning up space trash as revising and editing. We talked when we did problem analysis or problem solution essays, it was your burning sun, and when we did stakeholder analysis, it was who are the planets in your solar system. You know, some people are really passionate and they're like Mercury burns real hot, really close to the sun. I probably should have said Mars, but now I can't remember because I'm not that kind of doctor. But and then others are basically big balls of gas with a lot of pull, right? Like Jupiter. Yeah, fun to talk about political stakeholders that way. Especially, I forgot that yesterday was an election day in a lot of places. But anyways, it's not rhetorically effective or healthy, right? To think in an us-them mentality, even if it feels true, even if it is true. And so that is what I'm a doctor in, rhetoric, right? So when we're talking communication with other people, if you assume something wrong, if you approach it with, and frankly, if you approach it with a Western argumentative approach, it's like, your thesis is first, all your reasons why you're right. Maybe a side note about why other people might be right or are frankly, you're wrong and here's what you need to do about it, is really what it turns out. That's Western rhetoric. I put a stake in the ground, I defend my territory, and I'm really good at winning arguments and losing friends. There are some good models, though, we do have, like the Rogerian model, where we start with understanding. This is the kind of rhetorical model that people use in marriage counseling and in large financial negotiations. It's where we're trying to understand the other person's perspective, what they need, what they're trying to get at, and we try and repeat that back to them as honestly as we can, and then say what we think needs to happen and what our gap is or why we're frustrated. That step of understanding, taking time to understand, is transformational in interacting with people you're having challenges, conflict, or in a storm with. Because it puts the blame it shifts, it doesn't put the blame on them, to their face at least. Well, you know, even if we really feel like that's the case, rhetorically it's better, and we tend to be a lot more proactive and a lot more excited about the adventure if we're seeing them as like, how can we walk together toward the goal? And that's a huge thing I teach in my classes no matter what. Because it can be really easy to write a position paper, to have a well-developed argument with a 3-pronged thesis statement and everything like that. But if you are actively going into a situation with multiple stakeholders, multiple power dynamics involved, and you go in and you just want to say why they're wrong, why they don't understand your side. Simon Sinek, who's a leadership specialist, he wrote Leaders Eat Last and Start With Why, leans into this empathetic approach in the business world, especially and in leadership. So hopefully that made sense. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's like an immediate response. Like, we have an immediate response. If we don't fix this problem, we won't have learning communities.
Yeah.
And that costs pizza and donuts for the advisors in order to, but the long term is working with the software people so that they knew what we needed, which is being done.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so where did we go? How far do I have left? Oh yeah, sorry. I like inserting cultural references and images. Forgive me. Also, part of the reason you avoid us versus them is because you can't burn ships that aren't built. You have to have a ship in the first place. You're in a storm. You're this thing. Those people are responding to something. They're trying to solve a problem. They're dealing, and they're solving it in a way that isn't good for you. Is really what it comes down to, or it doesn't feel right. But you can't burn ships or bridges or whatever it is if they're not built. And so, you know, whatever adventure you're on, it's if you never land on the shore with your crew, it's hard to have somewhere to get away from. So whatever your storm or your institution's storm is, we want to avoid that us-them mentality. We want to be in a mindset of discovery, and we want to make sure we're shifting from an us versus them mentality to a collaborative, empathetic approach. If you want a digital copy, I'm about to hand out what our context led to, and so I'll provide context on this. But if you want a digital copy, you can go there. Let's see. I tried to print 20, but I only got 12 from the machine, even though it had paper. It just kept linking printing. But,
Oh, sure, blame the machine.
I will. It is an us versus them with
Exactly.
Yeah, that machine's not well-meaning. Can you give a machine agency? I hope not, because I tell Alexa she's a jerk all the time. Though note I use the pronoun. Like she's a person.
Thank you.
Like it's a person. I will find one more. I should have one more. Unless we have 13. Do we have 13 people or 12
Paige and
people?
I can share, don't worry.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You guys are a team anyways. Okay, cool. So when we're looking at that, if you have it in front of you, you could go to the QR code. I'm going to bring up the document. So the context, like I said, is we have faculty trying to go through this. We have faculty. Some of them are new. Some of them have been teaching for years with us. Some of them are 3 or 4 years from retirement. One of them is retiring this semester, but was going to teach 2 learning communities in her last semester because she's that dedicated and has so much fun doing it. And so what we did as a leadership team, and the first part is inspired by Dean Schnick, who I mentioned as an invisible partner. So he called a meeting to as many of our LC faculty as he could get, and some of their chairs. And we had 3 division chairs there. We had me, the other LC coordinator, and the dean there, and another 8 or 9 faculty who teach LCs or wanted to teach LCs. And so what we did was we started pulling together, where does your time go? When you're developing an LC, what does it look like? How much is prep? How much is during the semester? How much is after the semester, thinking about the next one or whatever? And so we had multiple discussions for close to 3 hours, though the meeting was originally only slated for 2 people stayed. And we talked through the work and the activity and how much time and how it was being used. And that was, honestly, that was a really great professional development activity for new faculty coming into LCs, right? And so that was part of the reason why afterwards, once we got through all the drama of it, we added to some of our existing pieces. So you don't have this on there, but we have, for our learning communities program, we have what we call the standard practices of consistency. And so all learning communities at Chandler Gilbert, regardless of modality, format, or funding, if you choose to do an LC, you're bound by the commitment to integrate these 4 practices into what you're doing. So we tell people reach out by letter, email, record a shared video before day 1. Integrate stackable HIPs after the first semester of partnership. Recursive student reflection, have that embedded in the class somehow so we get information on how the student experience is going with the LC, and the teachers can respond to that along the way. And then partake in assessment. CGC has a culture of assessment, data gathering, whether that's attaching gen ed outcomes or programmatic or disciplinary or whatever it is. To help with the struggle with the funding model, which some of the conversations that came up, we went from being paid double, so if I'm teaching 3 credit hours, I get a 6 total, so an additional 6. They found how much they could get from the budget that's been adjusted because we're all making cuts. And we had roughly $50,000 to spread across 13 different partnerships. And so that suddenly we had a cap. There was a whole lot of negotiation, but that's what they talked about earlier, and it's not the focus today. But part of the struggle in helping faculty focus on what they can do, focus on how they could be a partner. We did the advocacy side. We talked to VPAAs. We had multiple meetings to get faculty input and understanding and what they were concerned about. And then at the end of once everything was decided, we realized that we had these practical things and it might help frame it. So when we presented the new budget model, which changed from being double loaded for fully integrated and nothing for linked, we ended up going 2 credit hours instead of 3 for fully integrated, and a half credit hour stipend for anyone who linked, because we wanted to start honoring the people who were doing prep work but not in the class the whole time through the semester. And that was a inductively generated, data-driven development funding model based on what people said they used their time on, who'd been teaching NLCs for 10 years, who had developed multiple. So it wasn't just pulled out of a hat. There was talk of giving 2.5 to the people who had fully integrated LCs and nothing to linked still, and that was some people really advocated strongly for that, probably a good 30%, and it wasn't just the people who were teaching fully integrated. So the decision on that kind of came down to the president saying this does feel inequitable to have them do some of the prep, or some of the people who always only teach linked never getting any funding to do that work, unless it was through very specific professional development. So what we did is we built 2 things. So we tried to expand practices of consistency, but we also so those 4 things, we tried to build on it. So we have this, if you're linked or if you're integrated, based on the funding model, we're not asking you to do all the things you've ever done before. But we did get a list of those earlier in the year, right? So we created a list of all those things you've ever done before, and some of them aren't on the list. These are really starter kits. And we said, okay, so whatever it is, let's set a minimum threshold, right? If you're getting paid a half credit hour stipend, it's reasonable to say somewhere in your week, spend an hour to an hour and a half on your LC. And if you're getting a 2 credit hour stipend or a 2 credit hour remuneration across the thing, try and average about 4 hours, right? And not so, because before people were thinking, oh, if I'm fully integrated, I'm gonna have to co-teach no matter what. So that's automatically, 3 more hours in the classroom, right? And then I've got, trying to work with all these activities. So if we scroll down, so I'm gonna do practices of consistency first. So we said these are all activities that are LC specific. That was the other side. So we use this document to culture set. We use this document to say, here are things that for sure we count as LCs. And that was part of the challenge from the VPAA, who's no longer there anymore, but it was still a reasonable question, I think, to say at what point does normal teaching stop and LC start, that was a really good question that if we had just stayed grumpy, it's terrible. I'm not trying to downplay what was a very serious emotion, but that could be my way of externalizing it too, because I had emotion too. It was tough. And so, but we took a tense, challenge, storm-like situation, and we got good data from a good question, right? And sometimes people who don't know what we do ask really great questions about why we do it, and our inability to answer is where we go, is the struggle, right? Because if we've never been challenged or asked that question, if we think of the challenge as a positive, and it's like in therapy sessions, it's the asking a question versus questioning. Like, I sincerely want to know, if I'm assuming the best and someone asks a question, I'm going to answer that question as if they sincerely want to know. If I think they're questioning as a negative challenge and just trying to kind of rhetorically set me up, I might respond with stonewalling. And that's not fruitful, even if I think it's true, right? Even if I think that's what they're trying to do, the best I can do is be integritous and use it, right? And I'm sure people who study protest rhetoric will get mad at me for some of what I'm saying. I do, just for context, I tend to be very, a little more, not Avatar Way of Water, but Bruce Lee water, you know? So I tend to move a little less rigidly where I can, unless it's very clear that I need to put a stake in the ground. But all of that. So look at this list. Look at the list of practices of consistency. What do you see? What stands out to you? Still got about 15 minutes. And we'll talk about the practices of efficiency separately, but the practices of consistency should be specifically focused to instruction, I think. And co-teaching. So we'll just.
One of the, not a specific item, but it shows up in a number of items, is integration of Canvas courses, assignments, office hours, things like that. And that can be really helpful both for consistency and also for efficiency.
And if you have new LC partners who've never done this and you give them this list, suddenly you've given them a how-to as well, right? Oh, I didn't think about, like, do we do that? Like, that's a question I get regularly is, do we integrate our shells? Do we have to? So, what else do you notice? What stands out to you on that list?
Just an ongoing discussion with your partner, just staying in tune with each other over the grading of individual students, things like that.
Yeah. Anybody have that experience? Like, that's definitely something you try and do?
Yeah.
I've switched from two partners that I've worked with for a very long time, over many years, to a new partner, and it's really reminded me of all of the work that we've done for consistency and efficiency, and that when you come into an LC new, you are unaware of the ways that you can do that. So it's a learning curve, and it's been a long time for me since that learning curve. So it's helpful to remember that being explicit about ways that you want to integrate or swap work can be helpful.
Yeah, good. And as we look at these, this idea of consistent practice across LCs is a meaningful one when we're thinking about long-term branding, if nothing else. In marketing strategy, is it Roy Sutherland? And he talks about the thing McDonald's does is not make a great burger. They're just good at not making a bad burger. They're consistent in not making a bad burger, right? And so sometimes when we think about LCs, we're like, let's put the best teachers in there. It's like, well, but then, if you know that in the back of your head, you might be saying, is the reason we have good retention because they always have good retention? Not that, maybe I shouldn't say that, shouldn't have said that while recording. But, it's one of those things where if your program only stands because you have amazing people in it, what happens when suddenly you have new people who are slated for amazingness, right? So giving them practices of consistency is a great way to start that process. Anything else stand out as an activity that's like, I love that, or I don't understand that?
Emphasizing, reinforcing and supporting the other teacher in front of the other students.
Yeah.
That mutual reinforcement.
Yeah.
I love.
We regularly joke, probably possibly more than we should have sometimes over the years, about the LCs being married, you know, and so or the partners being like a marriage. And in one sense of the word, sure, some of the jokes have gotten a little bawdy sometimes, but they know each other very well because they've been teaching for 5 or 10 years together. So you know, you let them have their fun. But it is very much. It's not unlike, you know, and college students aren't children. But in a healthy family, if you've got 2 partners and kids, like research shows, it's good for the kids to see you not being a jerk to the other or undercutting them, right? So that's like a core healthy interaction. Yeah.
I don't see, I mean, there's stuff on here that my partner and I do, but we were friends before this, so it's easier for us to do those things without thinking that we're doing them specifically. But she is she's younger than I am, and she's younger as a teacher. She came to teaching a few years ago, and her energy reminds me of how I used to feel about teaching, which is lovely.
It's one of the
And
benefits.
then I've taught her some things that's like, no, you don't have to do that. You can do it this way.
Yeah.
And it's easier. So the variety between us is very nice.
Yeah, and that specific one, I've had a teaching partner where I noticed some of the more traditional male students treating them like a confrontation with maybe their mom. Like you could see the way they were talking. It's like, that's not what she said. That's not how she presented it, and you are having, like, who are you seeing in this interaction? Which is always in conflict, always something to remember. Like, if you're triggered, who are you seeing in that other person in this moment? Because it could be someone from 10 years ago and you're making assumptions. Never done that before at all. And so I remember, and it was a weird conversation to have, but I did pull the student aside, and I did get into dad mode a bit. You know, and I didn't, you know, because it's like he was presenting in this very traditional male gender presentation, and so I kind of went in that with him. And you know, it's the reason with the fool according to the folly, right? But don't reason with so that they don't stay that way. So that whole conundrum. So I went and I had to have that hard conversation, and that's the shift in him the next week, and a couple of the guys, because it was a kind of a triple shot at that time. Yeah.
Are you organized? Is your faculty organized?
We do not have a that thing, as you can tell from my awareness of I know Cal State's have this, because when I worked there, they were able to pick it for more funds and stuff. So no, not in the traditional sense. There is a faculty group, or like a
Association.
Yes, but not a thing.
But with a formal contract, because a lot of these things, I mean, my campus is organized, and it's so a lot of these things are spelled out in our contract, and in fact, our whole there's a codicil in the contract about learning communities, which if you're not organized, it really is a good thing to have it spelled out, because then if you're ever questioned, no, we do get paid for in an integrated. You get paid for 2, and unless you're wanting to revisit the contract.
And those are, like, when we talk about what can faculty do, sometimes faculty lose sight of being on various governance committees where possible, or being part of charter writing, or being part of vision statements, and trying to have seats at tables where they can advocate for themselves and others. There's in writing, we talk about this, the sociocultural anchoring of beliefs in conventions and in laws. And so when we have something codified and written and published and official and stamped, that's a good thing, and we should look for ways to do that. And that, because then when practice doesn't meet that contract, it becomes something we can challenge. Now, in my discipline and in rhetoric, sociocultural analysis is a constant thing where we tend to be more challenging of people in authority and leadership, and even in social norms. There are times when we can use social norms for our benefit, though, so we don't want to lose sight of it. But maybe you guys don't have to worry about that as much. All right, we're almost out of time, but I do want you to glance over the practices of efficiency. So the focus on this, also, these are both kind of starter kits, but they're practices that are meant to embody a mindset of integration for instructors to minimize faculty burden and decrease the sense of burnout when engaging with LCs as added work. I don't know if anyone in the room was there last year, but my presentation last year was, are your faculty overworked or are they undervisioned? And I had a couple other things there. But this is one of the ways I tried to live that out. It's like I'm hearing everyone really frustrated about this work. And so, we did try and set vision and say LCs are still meaningful, you know that. We know that you're feeling burdened by the workload. Instead of focusing on everything you usually do, balance the work among these things, or try and find ways to maximize. Because sometimes the question of, if an administrator says this is the way it is and you can't change it, asking them how they would imagine that working is a great question. Also, if you really can't, if there is no wiggle room for the time being because of the rhetorical context or whatever, and you have to go, okay, so then how do we accomplish this? And it's like, well, we don't do more work for less pay. We might find ways to be more efficient with the work, though. There's still, if we care enough about LCs and we want them to thrive, and we're in a season where it feels like a low point or a storm, we do things like this. We might get the partners to align their office hours. If you get to decide, like, what do you have control over? We share the same office. So in normal office hours, we could sit side by side and grade. We could have the same student in a shared conference, or we could talk about plan and that sort of thing with time we're already using. So we can take turns holding holding a triage role. We might take turns posting weekly announcements if you usually do weekly announcements because of RSI, regular and substantial interaction, those kind of things. Especially if you're online, sometimes you just share the burden, right? If you're sharing a Canvas shell, you only have to post every other week now. You've gained time back because you've traded, like you're sharing, and then you get but you're in the same course shell, so you alternate. Is that making sense at all? I'm going to pause just so you can read a little more of the list, and let me know what stands out or what would you add, which is we got 3 minutes I think left. Or if you have questions about this, I've been trying to interact all along. But if you have anything that you're curious about or want to talk more about, let me know.
So you keep talking about sharing a Canvas shell, and my partner and I decided we have a link at the top of each of our classes to the other person's shell. So when they log into my class, they can just easily move between the two. But we decided that trying to put all of my material and all of his material in one shell would just be a monster.
It can be.
And then we also have separate grade books, of course, and currently 2 students are likely failing the political science side. One of them is likely failing my side.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been sending emails and trying to schedule conferences with the students and whatever to try to make a plan for them to be successful. But
So I've been in both. All that sounds very familiar. I've taught both versions of it, whether we have separate Canvas shells or integrated Canvas shells, where we have separate syllabi or integrated, where we have separate grade books or integrated grade books. If it's fully integrated, we tell the students from the beginning it will be one shared grade for both classes. In fact, sometimes that's the marketing. You can, if I'm teaching math, or if I'm teaching English alongside math, and they're really good at math but struggle at writing, as long as they're doing enough work, they could get a C in my class and an A in the math, though that's not usually how we do it. And so usually what we would do is you get the average grade of a B. We say that from the beginning, it's a shared grade for both classes, and then as people struggle along the way, we treat it as a policy that can be addended for individual situations. If a student is already paid tuition and you're 8 weeks in and they're failing one class and not the other, they will get more learning from staying. And it won't really, and you can choose to, depending on your system, you can choose to withdraw them. It's usually instructor choice, whether you fail or withdraw. So then if you're gonna do that anyways, why not let them stay in for 4 weeks and even if they're doing subpar work in one of the classes. But it might be that they need the time back, and then you have a different kind of conversation. But I've had I can't say every variety, but so many versions of that conversation. Yeah. Depending on how good the people in your team are at user experience and online course design, sometimes it feels less overwhelming with certain strategies. Other times it is a beast and you split it.
Yeah, and I think partly because this was our first time going through, and then it's also my first time teaching this particular course. So I think that was a lot of the learning curve. We just decided not to, but now after going through it, maybe it'll be easier to do that.
And that's actually one of the big things about this is you don't have to do these all in a semester. You don't have to do them every week. You don't even have to do all the things you imagine as the best learning community the first time. And so one of the ways we engage with training is saying, think of what you're doing, like scaffold your learning, scaffold you and your partner's training, and over a period of 3 years that you imagine yourselves kind of building the perfect LC, which it never is, but you're gonna add along the way, you know? And so that becomes a really key point because of getting buy-in from new faculty, for one, because they are so nervous about having to do everything the first time. It's like if all you do is make sure you don't have exams the same time as someone has a major writing project, and you're kind of creating a streamlined schedule instead of randomness, like that alone, along with the social cohort of co-enrollment, is going to drastically change that student's experiences. So,
my partner that I teach with, I'm teaching the English composition part, and she's doing like know yourself and this is how you go through school, you know, a college readiness.
mm-hmm.
And I, a while ago, started writing my own sample papers for the short essays in 101, and students like it.
Yeah.
So she wrote essays for all of my papers, and then when we're reading them, for example, there's one that's expository essay, but they have to add sources, you know, so they get to write about something they know.
Yeah.
And mine's about how to use a spinning wheel, because that's what I do, and it is just so white. And she's Native American, and hers is about tanning a sheep hide, which she took a class on, and students love that, you know, variety.
Yeah, my chemistry professor does the free writes in my class when he's co-teaching with me. And then he'll share. We also have them. Never mind, we don't have time for that. I have tons of stories, even though I think I was told this morning that I look like a grad student. But no, I do have tons of stories. I have been doing learning communities since 2016, planning them since late 2015, I think. So if you ever see me, or you want to email me, or you want to go to my YouTube channel, or you just like Dungeons and Dragons and want to watch some streaming of because I also in Club Advisor for that, you can go do that. We have anywhere from 45 to 55 students 2 times a week, 4 hours a week night. But that is not what I'm here for. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you got something out of it. Remember that hope is often tied to our mindset and our actions, believing that our actions will go somewhere and do something. So find actions you can take that feel healthy. I don't know if this is the QR code, but you can use it. I don't know if that's the right one or not, but it's here. Have a good one. Thank you so much for hanging out. Remember, checkout's at noon. If you haven't got your bags yet.
Gotta go do it.
Yeah. And I'll hang out for a few minutes in case anyone has questions.
I love when you reference Frederick Winslow because, of course, it's my big passion.
It is the full title. It was something like.
It's got Pullman in it, obviously.
Absolutely, and everything I write has a Pullman in it. Sorry, I almost made a medical joke. It was collaboration and affirmation in declaring expertise in the writing class. So if you want to hang out for a minute, I can pull up things that you might nerd out about. Okay, so we usually start with models of the rhetorical triangle, right? And so that's got 4 components: so message, receiver, whatever context. And one of the things I was engaging with was as I was going through learning communities and developing them, and also hearing people fight in one of my specializations, which is second language and translingual writing.
Literally fight?
I mean, it was as heated as it gets without throwing blows.
One of my interviews, a phone interview, 2 of the faculty members got in a fight, and I'm like, well, I'm not going there.
Yeah, that's awkward. But no, it was, I don't know if you heard the translingual versus second language writing, like Paul Matsuda versus versus Surratt Colorado. And they weren't necessarily trying to, but they were kind of starting to build camps. So part of that led me to think about disciplinary knowledge differently. And I tend to be, like, first I tend to have affirmational approaches in my classes with students in language and identity. But when I started doing it as a disciplinary identity model, I said, okay, what do all the different disciplines that feed into writing have to say about making good writing? And so what I came up with when I pulled it all together, this is the simple version of the 8 aspects of writing model. So it's meant to be a holistic, systematic model where, and what it does, so we have what I call the big 3, rhetorical, linguistic, aesthetic, and those are usually the ones where fights happen. Though sometimes you'll get, sometimes technology will not be seen well by more traditional classical literature scholars or whatever, but it's a mediational means of communication. So, yeah. So when in class, I'll talk about the big 3 as, they have really good value, but if you had a high school that only emphasized making good arguments, you win arguments, lose friends. If you have the linguistic, they actually probably were meaning sociocultural, like grammar norms versus grammar. And so I actually give them a crash course in linguistics, morphology, syntax, phonology, phonetics, all that. And I say, but if they overemphasize sentence level clarity and correctness, one, they were socioculturally oriented, which is about norms and beliefs and that kind of thing. But if someone does that, students who, you hear the phrase like, I'm a bad writer because my grammar's bad, right?
Yeah, it's always great.
Right, all the time, always. And it's like, it means, like, when you hear that from graduate students and first year students, it means sometimes it means they just don't have the language to say, right? And so the other one, the aesthetic, is creative writing, and writing for healing, is where that goes. Literature is what I meant to say. That could lead to something like the bell tower writer, where all people are born. If it's got some really good things, aspects of beauty and all that, and meaningful experiential language. But when taught as a hyper-emphasized thing, we get people who, I'm not as good as, this award-winning literature that I'm being presented in high school, so I'll never be a good writer because I'm not like that. And then I go around. So the whole thing is meant to shift writing from not just from what makes a good writer based on the tool sets you have, not based on identity and bad feedback or whatever it is. So then each of these has a whole toolbox, and these are just 2 of the tools, right? And sometimes it's like associative words, like structural is like organization and arrangement. Like those sometimes are just different ways of describing it. And then, so I exploded into this. I add the dotted lines to talk about porous boundaries.
So you do all of this in your classes also?
Yes, in an awareness building way. I try and get them to use the language and bridge the language. Like, what did you call? How would you describe this in your own words?
Are you talking 101?
Yeah, and 102. Yeah. So
I've been thinking about changing my 101. Not quite as thick as that, but
yeah.
So mine was, and this will probably not surprise you.
This is the scariest version. Sorry.
This will probably not surprise you. Mine was speaking of sex, the rhetorical strategies of, I'm a historian, rhetorical historian, the rhetorical strategies of Victoria Woodhull, Frances Willard, and Ida Craddock. And it was a ton of fun.
Nice.
So,
I mean, you got it. Yeah.
but I don't get to use it in class.
I do have a colleague who teaches 50 Shades of Grey content. And one of the best, I still use the example about.
That would work.
But one of the things that comes up with that is the importance of not using you in an essay, because if you're writing about practices used in 50 Shades of Grey and you're sharing out to the class and talking to your teacher, so then you do this and then you tie this thing and then it's.
Yeah, that's it. That's actually a good way to teach that.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Because I teach it and they just ignore it.
Yeah. So this is what I call the starter kit also. So I like starter kits because it absolves me of complete perfectness. But yeah, so, and I have an ebook for my students that starts out with PTS for writing, where it comes from, and how we deal with writer identity, and then shifts into core things like the rhetorical triangle, and also healthy process practices. But then it has a whole chapter on the 8 aspects and a couple chapters that dig in specifically to the ones that are for English 101. So I pull apart the analytical aspect of writing in more depth and the rhetorical in more depth. I have a couple more chapters I should add soon, but I don't have them yet. So I use some of them.
Well, you gave me a little kick in the ass, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I have videos on much of this on YouTube. If you over 100 different ones for fun things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, it was very
Yeah,
nice
it's
to
nice
meet
to
you.
meet you. I'm glad we're in the same state, right?
Yeah,
It's cool.
state of anxiety sometimes.
That too.
Where to